Good morning, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is David Okon. Welcome to discussing universal credit, a financial system of helping people who need help in the United Kingdom. And I've been talking about this in the other videos. If you watch this video, watch the other video as well. And let me know your thoughts or leave a comment below. Subscribe to this channel if you're coming to watch for the first time today, and share with family and friends to support this process, this project. Click like and click notification bell. And thank you so much for your support. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity. We're talking about the financial system. Watch this video alongside the rest of the videos. This is a continuation. We're talking about something called universal credit. And if you need further information, visit the government website, gov.uk in the United Kingdom, and also big organization advisory services such as Citizen Advice, which is actually the biggest advice service in the United Kingdom. And we look at the wider aspect of policy from time to time, but today I will try to stick with the specifics of how the system works, system of benefit. And if you've watched the other video, you'll be familiar with the term benefit in the United Kingdom. Is money given, money or something, monetary value given to people who need help in this country. So with universal credit, one of the things you can do is to calculate how much you need using specific systems. There are websites using the rest of it known as Listen Group's a quick benefit calculator, and also others like Turn to Us, Entitled to Us, and entitled Turn to Us is for adults over the age of 18, and this gives you an amount in calculating the benefit. There are 5 steps to calculating universal credit. You look at the standard allowance, you look at the other elements such as housing, childcare elements, and also you look at the capital income, whether you reduce it, the reduction of capital and income, because universal credit is income tested, income compliant, means tested. In that sense, you watch the rest of the video, you will understand this terminology to be familiar with them. And also you look at things like income benefit cap, and if it applies to you, or you take away sanctions and reductions. These are actually some of the techniques of calculating what you get in universal credit. And also you will also pay attention to understand that universal credit payment can change every month. This depends on different factors. If you, for example, if you work for a living and your income changes, because these are means-tested benefits. Let us look at the cost of living payment, if applicable to you or somebody else. And let us see, this is money. If you are eligible for this money, the government will be sending this payment or the payment of £300, which have been already paid in 2023 in autumn. And this happened. This was actually paid in around November, from the 19th of November. And also there is going to be a further payment of £300 for those who are entitled to benefit as a means, as a passport benefit. And this will be between August 17th, already paid in 2023. And these are actually monies given to those on universal credit or similar means-tested benefit, which the government is paying in relation to the cost of living crisis, averaging £300 And this year in spring, government will pay 299 this spring 2024 if you are actually still eligible. Eligibility criteria and also the concept we have discussed in the other videos, that if you are actually able to get these benefits, because they have been tested and there are other factors also affecting whether or not you get them. So last year in 2023, 3 payments of the cost of living payments have already been made to people who are actually eligible, people who normally get universal credit, normally get these payments, and it relates to whether you are actually eligible or not. And the last payment was actually between 25th, this was paid actually between the 25th of April and 17th of May 2023. This was a payment of 301. These are some of the payments, actually examples of money given specifically because of the cost of living for those who receive universal credit. So to get your this payment, you should either be paid, should have been paid universal credit for an assessment period ending between the 26th January and the 25th of February 2023. You must have also started a universal credit claim by the 26th January 2023. You won't normally get the payment until your claim is successful, and you will still have got the cost of living payment even if you didn't get a payment because of reduction, or if your benefit are paid to someone else, like a landlord. And this is some of the information. Because sometimes if you are on the universal credit, if you're in debt, the government actually give your money to the creditor. Increasingly, the government will be doing these arrangements to people who need support with their debt payment. Sometimes these payments are actually mandatory in terms of arrangement between creditors and the Department of Work and Pension, otherwise the government. So leave a comment below what you think about this kind of situation, and leave a comment below if you need more information. And like I said before, the best way to get information is actually to go to the government website. Sometimes the government will send a benefit to people but get lost along the way, and there's a problem with the system of payment. And this is something you can give a thought below if you think that the government can. You can have a word with your GP, with your general practitioner. Not really general practitioner, but your member of parliament, to find out why this situation might be existing, why the government might not be in a position to provide effective payment, because the system is broken up, and the benefit system is so debilitated, in so much so that people normally, sometimes people don't even get paid. The system is so broken because the other issues we have been discussing, issue of funding. Also, we tend to not have enough staff. So if this payment was sent and they were not received, somebody who should have been receiving the money can report to the DWP, Department of Work and Pension of Government UK. Now, if you are self-employed and you also might be subjected to the test of income, you could call it income eligibility test, which if you earn a certain level, as we have already discussed in other videos, then you may still be paid universal credit if you are working self-employed, and you can, if you are actually in a relationship, you can claim universal credit jointly. And these are actually some of the rules, and you get it as one payment, which is shared payment also, or depending on the circumstance of your relationship, as we have also discussed in the other videos. So if you are self-employed, the first thing to do is to look at your standard amount, because the standard amount is how much they pay universal credit, and other elements are added on top of that for paying rent, or if you're sick, if you are caring for somebody, or for any other reason which are actually adding to the elements. So the first thing to look at normally is whether you are self-employed or employed or not employed. You are calculating the amount of universal credit. First thing to look at is actually standard amount. So depending on your circumstances, whether you're single, if you're single and also under 25 years, you get £292 for 11 pence per month. If you're single and 25 or over, you get £368.74. This is the amount of universal credit and standard allowance you get per month, actually in benefit, which is why I said in the other video that the problem with the benefit system is actually the level is too low, in the sense that if you only get 368, that is under £400 per month in the standard allowance for universal credit. If you're a single person, this is actually to keep you in poverty. And if you listen to the rest of the video, actually criticize the benefit system because of the low level. And if you're actually jointly claiming universal credit, if both of you are 25 years and you get £458, 51 pence per month for universal credit standard allowance. And if you're actually in a joint claim, one or both of you are 25 years or over, and you get £578.82 a month. And these figures are actually arbitrary because there's no evidence to suggest that people under 25 have less need financially than people 25 years or over. These are actually like making up as you go along policy, which is actually crude and of little or actually very insignificant in terms of crediting the government with producing credible policy for the benefit system. So now, if for some reason you naturally grow up and you are actually older than 25 years, then suddenly your universal credit standard allowance will go up, and also these are actually your circumstance. You're being 25 years is your circumstance. You report these changes to the Department of Health and Social Security that you are actually grown from under 25 to 25 and perhaps over, so that you get more universal credit in the standard allowance. But also, if you are in a relationship, that is also a type of circumstance in which you find yourself, and also it's necessary to report these changes of circumstance as a policy and requirements. And once you report these changes of circumstances, you tell the DWP that you are actually maybe separated. You used to be jointly claiming, you could be in a joint relationship. Now you have separated. You are required to actually report this payment, this change of circumstance, which is the fact that you have separated from your partner with whom together you are actually claiming universal credit. And now, having separated, you report this to the DWP, Department of Health and the Department of Work and Pension, to tell them that your circumstances have changed. You normally put this information on your universal credit journal. If you watch this video, I'll talk about universal credit journal. I'll talk about managing your benefit online. I've also discussed that people with limited access to internet or computer skills or knowledge, then in theory they receive some support, but in practice, because of lack of resources from the government to the public sector and the social services, these levels are far in between. Sometimes they are so difficult to get that in practice they are actually not available. But I encourage people to do their best, because you are actually in a position where you need to help yourself. And some of these help are critical, because if you don't get them, your livelihood, you can be in destitution. You might not be able to actually buy food, energy, pay for energy or water, or even in many cases, if you don't get standard allowance, you don't claim it for one reason or another, you might not get the housing element to pay your rent. And all these are actually down to how you approach the benefit system, which I see already says as necessarily very complex. I've been very critical of the benefit system. So, if you are claiming universal credit, it is important to know different things about the benefit. There is something called benefit uprating. Benefit uprating is a standard when the standard amount and the elements go up. So each April is the financial timetable in the United Kingdom, counting the calendar for financial management purposes. The financial year, the date starts from April, ends in March every year. So every April, actually, the benefits, including universal credit, tends to go up in amount in terms of standard allowance, and also the elements. There's something called benefit uprating. That's how they call it, which means standard allowance and also the elements of universal credit tend to go up actually every April, and which means you get an increase in your universal credit, and also the universal credit being increased within the credit universal credit assessment period, which starts after the date of the increase. Now, if you are actually getting also something called transitional element, which is a different payment, which if you're moving from one benefit to another, you're getting transitional element of universal credit, because if you're moving from legacy benefit to universal credit, you get something called transitional element benefit. Is a type of payment. About elements of universal credit, that is actually a different component of payment, which is actually part of universal credit, in addition to the standard allowance. And this tends to go down if actually the period, if the increase of your universal credit if you get the increase in your first universal credit assessment period, that starts after the increase, after the date of increase, after the increase of the universal credit, which is uprated, after the universal credit is uprated, if that coincides with a time when you also get your transitional period, the same amount, the transitional element will decrease by the same amount as the other amount increasing. So the DWP may increase your money, at the same time you will lose the same amount of money because of something called transitional element. Your situation will make you worse off as a claimant for no fault of your own, because the system is complex, the system is rigged, probably also corrupted in the technical sense of the word corruption, which means it doesn't function well. And that's what happens. You get an increase in every April of standard allowance and other elements. But if you're actually getting also the transitional period around the same time within the assessment period, and at the start of, if actually the uprating happens, and then at the same time if uprating was being done, the increasing of universal credit, if it happens, that means you are going to actually lose money by the same amount, which means for reasons of uh, systemic accident, you lose the benefit you're supposed to have got when in the increment during the period of the financial period. So these are some of the problems associated with universal credit. So in upgrading universal credit, if your money is paid today, and then if the increase is actually done today, this weekend today is actually being your first universal credit assessment period. The assessment period is when they start to assess when your universal credit payment begins. Now that is when the increment is made, but the actual payment starts the following day. The following day with your universal credit, which is the date after your assessment period beginning, you get the payment, the increment start counting from the following day. And also, if you're getting transitional period, the transitional element, if you're also getting the transitional element will decrease by the same amount of the increase. So for one reason or another, you lose out so overall this means your overall universal credit payment might not increase under these circumstances. So there's something called managed migration, which if you claim universal credit under managed migration, then you might be getting a transitional element payment, which is a form of payment, as I said, or after getting a severe disability premium, severe disability premium, which is an SSP, an old legacy benefit, which is no longer relevant. You cannot claim it currently, but if you are claiming it before, then it will still happen. So this, in calculating universal credit, the second thing you do is actually look at the other elements. You have looked at the standard allowance, which is what the main aspect of universal credit, but also depending on your circumstances, there are additional payments which can be added to the standard amount. It's called element. So you check that in your calculation. You check to find out if you have access to, if you actually qualify for element payments. And so these are actually example payment, maybe for in addition to your basic payment, standard allowance. You can get extra in which will be added to your universal credit payment for things like managed migration, transitional protection, which is actually you get transitional elements in under those circumstances. And migration is from the legacy benefit to universal credit. During that time, there is a type of payment which you get in addition to your standard allowance, universal credit, or you can your previously received a severe disability premium, or previously, meaning this is a legacy benefit. If you did get it, then you probably get an additional payment, which is actually it's called severe disability premium. You get another element for housing. It's called housing element, children, child element, and for childcare element. If you're not being able to work because of sickness or disability, something called limited capability for work-related activity, which is a mouthful. It's limited capability for work-related activity, which is actually a form of money you might get when you are sick, getting universal credit. So it is actually like that. And because you cannot work because you're sick, and also perhaps you're caring for someone else, and probably that is carer's allowance. I'm not sure about that. So like I said, these additional payments to standard allowance of universal credit are actually called element. This, you can get more than one depending on your circumstances. And these, if you get one or more of these other elements, all of them will be added to your standard allowance of universal credit. Now, the transitional element arises in a situation when legacy benefit stops and clients losing out because of having to move from universal credit, from legacy benefit to universal credit. So, if in a situation where the Department of Work and Pension, the government, the UK government, if they see that the client is losing out, sometimes in certain circumstances, they can get something called the transitional element, which is actually under managed migration process. This is actually something called managed migration. Therefore, that's the meaning of transitional element, is an additional payment, which happens when a client appears to be or actually losing out benefit because of moving from legacy benefit to universal credit. So if you are actually on legacy benefit, and if you get a migration notice from the Department of Work and Pension, and if you claim your universal credit before the deadline, then you will be eligible for managed migration, which is actually will allow you to benefit from the from transitional element. So during the transition from legacy benefit to universal credit, the Department for Work and Pension calculate both what you might be entitled to, what you might be entitled to in legacy benefit, and also calculate what you might be entitled to from universal credit and compare the amount. If you are going to get more from legacy benefit, then the difference will be paid as a transitional element to your, in addition to your standard allowance of universal credit. So when you are moving or you have moved to universal credit from legacy benefit, now your transitional element is going to change. It is going to reduce. So now, if you are actually being paid a transitional element, if the payment starts, it will also reduce if your standard amount or other elements increase, except the child element. Other elements such as if you get a new element, if a new element starts, any other element of universal credit, if it starts, or if you move from limited capability for work element or to limited capability for work related element, or if you move between the carers element and the limited capability or limited capability for work related or limited capability for work element, and these are all taken into account to impact on the transitional element. Transitional element means helping you in a certain way for you not to lose benefit during the period of moving from legacy benefit to universal credit. So in calculating the amount of universal credit you get, and especially during a situation involving transitional managed transitional payments, when you actually claim universal credit, when you are moving from legacy benefit, will affect how much money you get, whether you actually, some client will actually lose money altogether, and this is something you can pay attention to. So in terms of timing, when you claim universal credit, you need to pay attention to managed migration. If you're claiming universal credit under managed migration, with managed migration actually will involve whether or not you lose money, and this is normally something people will take into account when they're trying to calculate the amount of universal credit you get. It can be assessed between standard allowance and also the other elements. In this example, we are looking at the transitional element which is under managed migration of universal from legacy benefit to universal credit. So when the Department of Work and Pension is actually calculating universal credit during transitional period, the Department of Work will actually work out two figures to compare how much you are entitled to. So they use a total legacy amount, as in legacy benefit, the amount of legacy benefit you are actually entitled to as a total, and also what they use that to compare. They compare this legacy amount to, and also the to calculate something called indicative universal credit amount, which is actually the amount you are actually expected to get because you haven't got universal credit yet. So this actually predicted universal credit amount is compared to the total legacy benefit you might be entitled to. So this comparison are actually put in place to allow your benefit to be calculated. So when trying to assess your benefit to see how much you might get during transitional period of universal credit between universal credit and legacy benefit, DWP looked at your entitlement on the day of your migration. If you are migrating today, they actually look at your entitlement on that day. So if somebody is claiming universal credit, their migration day depends on when they claim universal credit. So it is not known exactly their migration day. Their migration day determines how much money they get. And how much money they get is actually determined by when their migration day is. Migration is actually moving from legacy benefit to universal credit, and the day you move from universal credit to from legacy benefit to universal credit is called migration day. And that day is not known. It all depends when you actually migrate from legacy benefit to universal credit. So when you get migration notice from the DWP, you can claim before the deadline. There's a deadline to that migration notice. If you claim before the deadline, that means your migration day is before you claim. So if you migrate, the day you may migrate, if you migrate before, actually you are counted one day backward. Your benefit is counted backward, what you might be entitled in terms of managed migration scheme, managed migration scheme. So you claim before the deadline of your migration notice, before it expires. If you claim maybe that your benefit is backdated by a day, in other words. So your migration day is actually a day before you claim universal credit. If you universal credit today, if you claim universal credit today, your migration day is yesterday. So if you claim tomorrow, your migration day is today. One day, you're backdated. Your benefit, your migration day is actually backdated by one day. But if you claim late, if you claim universal credit after the deadline, then your migration day is actually a day after you claim universal credit. So you are actually counted as migration day is pushed forward by one day, which might mean you might get less benefit by probably a day, or even could affect your migration. Your migration element significantly, one way or the other. So assessing benefit is actually, under these circumstances, is actually you could say tentative. You could say it's like they make assumptions. It's a rough estimate. They can say you will get around so much amount, but what you actually get might not be the same with what the DWP, Department of Health and Department of Work and Pension, may estimate one figure, they pay another figure. So that is how complex the system is. So in working out how much universal credit you actually get, one of the things, the next thing you do is actually work out the total legacy amount of benefit. So if you're getting 1 or 2 or 3 more legacy benefits, you add them together, you get a total amount. And this is some sort of a formula for working out universal credit. And then you work out the total amount of legacy benefit. Do this. In the process of doing this, you work out the amount you are entitled to, you would be entitled to from each legacy benefit on your migration day. So on the day of your migration, you work out the total amount you are entitled to benefit on that day. So once you get the total amount of legacy benefit, you work it out in terms of a monthly allowance, the amount you get per month. So you estimated how much would you get in total per month. So you do that to arrive at a monthly equivalence of what you get paid from legacy benefit in terms of a monthly amount. But there might or might be a problem. There might or might not be a problem because most legacy benefits are actually paid weekly. So the burden is now on the calculator of benefit from legacy benefit, adding a total, and also making sure this total is actually expressed in terms of a monthly amount you get. So on your migration day, when you add together all the legacy benefit and you express this amount in terms of a monthly payment, you convert the figure of each total of what happened on migration day. You are actually calculating the amount of legacy benefit. You express this amount in terms of a monthly amount, and you add all this amount together. This is some of the process of calculating universal credit. Now there is something called benefit cap. Benefit cap relates to the amount, the maximum amount of benefit the government says you should get. There are certain level of benefit beyond which you don't actually get, because these benefits are actually means tested. So there is a benefit cap. If for some reason maybe your housing is more expensive than the government will allow, there is a broad concept surrounding benefit cap. Then if you add together all the legacy benefit which you have actually worked in 8 monthly segments, you add all this together, then you apply the benefit cap to the total amount which is actually of legacy benefit, and then you need to apply the benefit cap in the same way. It will be applied under universal credit rules, even though the legacy benefit rules are different. Example, if you don't get housing benefit, you might still need to apply the benefit cap to your other legacy benefit. It sounds a bit tediously complicated, and which is what it is, and that is what it is. So under universal credit, there is something called tax credit, which changes into working element. So sometimes these things are so complicated that the formula for calculating them will just disappear, and often the system is so complex that people who are claiming benefit get actually either less or more, and if you get more, you are actually almost accused of you're being paid more benefit, and the Department of Work and Pension will come at you and ask you to pay the money back. If you're not careful, you will be accused of fraud, even if it is their mistake. But the rules, if known by those who claim, normally if there is benefit or claim payment, you have to check if it is the benefit, the mistake of the DWP. Then there are certain rules surrounding your rights And this is some of the things you need to know. Something I will not go into detail with, but there's always a problem calculating the amount of benefit generally, especially universal credit. And normally people challenge these decisions, and there are rules about challenging the amount or any other, where every time you can challenge if you think you're paid less, because you can go online and calculate your benefit, and you will discover that the independent system will actually tell indicate that you should be paid more benefit than the Department of Work and Pension have paid you. If that situation arises and you feel you're being paid less, but these things are easy to say, but it's not easy to actually implement, because challenging the decision of DWP is extremely difficult. In most cases, people do not do it. They lose benefit because of the complexity of the system, and also I believe it is actually complex for the DWP itself to implement. So there is also something called indicative universal credit. Indicative universal credit is the amount of universal credit you might be getting you might be entitled to on your migration day. On the day you move, you look at the indicative. I think it's also the terminology is indicative of what it is. What is predictable, what they estimate. So it's called indicative. What they actually think is reasonably what you're going to get, the predicted amount you're going to get on your migration day. They may mention one figure, but that is actually indicative of what you might get. It's not really actual. So that is what indicative universal credit means. What you get on what you are predicted to get on your migration day, is in terms of entitlement. So normally the DWP must use some of the same information and rules to calculate the indicative universal credit amount as they use for the legacy amount. So the app to do this universal credit would normally use a different figure. For example, the DWP must use the same earned income figure they use to work out the total legacy amount. If you get working tax credit, the DWP should use the childcare cost we use for the total legacy amount. And so this is exactly indicative amount you might be getting with your because apparently the time they are calculating your universal credit, the time they are calculating your legacy benefit, they will be using the figure you provide to them at that time. So that is actually the reason they actually use your your earned income, your tax credit, or some of the other things you might be getting from legacy benefit. Things like, for example, working tax credit. They use the child care cost thing to work out the element of tax credit or child tax credit. For example, looking at child care costs, which is actually used for the total legacy amount, and these are actually legacy information being used to calculate universal credit. This is actually a new benefit, and so if you get earned income such as from work or self-employment, if you get it for several you earn income for several legacy benefits. This is the DW use the figure for tax credit. If you get tax credit, for example, if you don't get tax credit, the DWC will use earned income figure for your income related employment support allowance, income related employment support allowance, legacy benefit for sickness. When you are actually on a means tested benefit, it is also means tested, so it's for sickness, people who are sick. This is actually legacy benefit, which actually ESA translates into limited capability for work-related activity or limited capability for work, as in the elements of universal credit in the new benefit, which is universal credit from legacy benefit. So in this calculating, you can use tax credits, and you can also use on income figure for ESA, as I said, or JSA, job seekers allowance, income based job seekers allowance. This is actually assessed based on the level of your income. And also the other one is income related, which is the same thing. They just work with different terminologies, which is actually meaning you look at your income that says that benefit is means job seekers allowance is being replaced by universal credit standard allowance as it is, and also income support, which is actually being replaced, also legacy income support being a legacy benefit. If you watch the rest of the video previous to this, I will have discussed this condition, this situation there. So as you continue to work out the transitional element, in so working out the transitional element, which is actually we have discussed about, so you subtract the indicative universal credit amount from the total legacy amount. For example, if your indicative universal credit amount is 400 and your total legacy amount is 500, your transitional element is 100. So indicative element of universal credit minus let me see, universal legacy benefit, or whichever you want to put it. So legacy benefit minus, because you want the figure to be positive, so you're going to say legacy benefit probably is 500 and indicative amount of universal credit actually 400. So difference is actually plus 400, which is actually the transitional element. It's the amount of money you pay, so that you don't lose out by the same amount when transitioning from a universal credit, from a legacy benefit to universal credit. So following from this indication, if your indicative universal credit is actually the same as your total legacy benefit, then you're going to get a zero transitional element. You're not going to be paid any transitional element. So if you're actually transitioning, so your income actually deducted from your maximum universal credit amount, your income deduction is actually more than your maximum universal credit. You get your indicative universal credit is 0. This means that your income, if it is deducted, if the income deducted from your universal credit, this deduction is going to be more than your maximum universal credit. So your transitional element will be your total legacy amount plus the difference between your income deduction and your maximum universal credit amount. This is to make sure you don't lose money because the income deduction is more than your maximum universal credit amount. So to work out your transitional element when your indicative amount is 0, you subtract your maximum universal credit amount from your income deduction. So this is some of the information. So you add the difference to your total legacy amount, and then you get your transitional element. So an example would be if your total legacy amount is 450, and the maximum amount of your indicative universal credit is 500, which is more than your total legacy amount. the maximum amount of your indicative universal credit amount is 500. The deduction due to your income is 600. So after your indicative universal credit amount reaches 0, there is still 100 of the deduction left. So your transitional element is 450 pounds plus 100, which is 550. So if you look at SDP, which is actually severe disablement payment, if you look at that and manage migration transitional elements so if you are claiming under managed migration, you will get one transitional element for your own claim, including the SDP. So DWP will include SDP in the calculation, even if you only got it without benefit. So you might get SDP transitional element instead if you can't get the managed migration transitional element. So if you got a severe disability payment, SDP, the month before you applied for universal credit, and you're claiming under managed migration, you'll get one traditional element with your whole claim, including SDP. The DWP include the SDP in the calculation, even if you only got it with your housing benefit. So if you are not claiming under managed migration or can't get the managed migration transitional element, you might be able to get an SDP transitional element. You will need to have got the SDP with either income-based job seekers allowance, income-related employment support allowance, income support. You must also meet the qualifying condition for SDP on the date that your universal credit award starts. So you won't get the SDP in the transitional element if you start living with a partner who is claiming universal credit. If you're not sure you got an SDP, you can ask. You can actually check your benefit letters and contact the benefit provider, which is the DWP, if you're not sure about something. So if you're eligible for transitional element, you will get a monthly payment to replace the SDP. So you can do a checkup how much you might be getting of SDP transitional element. If you do so, you are in your first assessment period. The amount you will get will depend on your situation. If you are in more than one of these situations, you will get whichever amount is higher. So, if your first universal credit assessment period started, say for example, on after the 29th of June 2023, the condition may dictate one thing or another. So you have a situation where you are in a joint claim. If you are getting a high rate of SDP, neither you or your partner as the carer, the transitional element will be 445.91. These are examples. If you're a single person or you're having a joint claim, which doesn't include the limited capability for work-related activity element, you get 313 pounds and 79. These are monthly figures you get of transitional elements. So if you're in a single or a joint claim which include limited capability for work-related activity, you get 132 pounds and 12. This is a sickness element. So if you or your partner as a carer, the rules are more complicated, so you don't get the higher amount of 445.91. So if your carer started getting either the following in your assessment period: carer's allowance, the care element, universal credit, so you will get one of the lower amounts instead. You will get one of the lower amounts depending on whether your claim includes the limited capability for work-related activity element. Now, if your first universal credit period started on the 29th of June 2023, your first universal credit assessment period would have begun after the 10th of April 2023. You will get the uprated amount of transitional element. If you're already getting universal credit before the 10th of October, April 2023, you'll get the whole amount, and this won't go up. Now, if you're in a situation where you have a joint claim and you're getting the higher rate of SDP, so your transitional element having begun before the 10th of April 2023, you get 405. If after the 10th or the 23rd, you get 445.9. If you have a single or joint claim which doesn't include limited capability for work-related activity, and your transitional element beginning before the 10th of April 2023, you get 285 per month, a transitional element. And if after the 10th of April 2023, you get 313.79. And these are some of the examples to give you an idea what happens there for purposes of information and also of interest. You have a joint claim and a joint claim which pertains to restitution before the 10th April, you get 120 pounds. Afterward, you get 132.12 transitional elements. So then, if including capability, limited capability for work-related activity element. If you're a couple with SDP, and you are also a carer, you are actually in a situation of carer element, and your first universal credit assessment period starting before the 29th of June 2023, then you can argue you should get the higher amount of SDP transitional element, either the old amount of 405 pounds per month or the uprated amount of 445.91. So uprating, if you remember, is when there are increments during the financial year in April. Every year of universal credit, this is actually the transitional element situation. So you should get this if both of the following are true. If you or your partner previously getting the higher rate of SDP and it didn't feel awarded one of them, one of you a carer element for looking after the other, the first universal credit assessment period. So if you get lower rate of or no SCP transitional element, you can get specialist help from the expert advice team. So if your other universal credit element increases, the DW will reduce your transitional element when your standard amount or other universal credit elements increases, except the childcare element or a new element start. When a new element start, when you move from limited capability for work relative activity or limited capability for work. Limited capability for work when you are sick, but you are required to do work-related activity as a condition of getting benefit if you're sick. If you're getting universal credit, this we are talking about universal credit. But limited capability for work-related activity is when you're very sick and you're so sick that the DWP does not require you to do anything like training, like exercises to prepare you for work. That means you're sick to a level where you actually are not supposed to do anything for your benefit, like looking for work, like training, preparing for work. That is limited capability for work-related activity. That means you get probably more money. Probably not, because the transitional element work in mysterious way. So if you move from LCW, limited capability for work, to limited capability for work-related element, if you move between the care element and the limited capability to work-related activity or limited capability for work element, if your elements change, you will need to check how your managed migration or SCPA transitional element will change over time. Changes within the benefit of universal credit is really critical, because you can gain or lose benefit, even if it is not your fault. I mean, if you are actually on universal credit, you have to keep an eye wide open, looking at the changes. Any slight changes, you lose benefit or gain benefit. If you lose benefit, that is okay, and it is not okay because you lose benefit. But if you gain benefit, you shouldn't get. It is even worse, because you have to pay it back. And people on low income don't keep benefit, which means you're going to be in debt with the Department of Work and Pension, with the government. And these overpayment will be deducted from your benefit, which means you get even less benefit. You are already on low income. These are some of the things you may need to bear in mind. So if you are paying rent, mortgage, or service charge, these are actually housing costs. With universal credit, you might get housing cost element to pay some or all of your rent or service charge, but you don't get actually payment for mortgaging. To get the housing element, you need to live in Great Britain and pay the housing costs for the home you live in. So you should be liable to pay rent. You should be the one who is supposed to pay rent, and you should be British. Not really British, but you should be living in Britain. Habitual residency test. So you have a mortgage or a home loan, you might be able to get a loan. To help pay your interest on your mortgage on your home loan. This is separate from universal credit. This is not universal credit. Is not a loan. Universal credit, you could say, is a grant, which you are granted, you are given free of charge. You don't pay it back. So if you are a client who pays rent to the council housing association, to work out your housing element, you need to check how many rooms the government think you need This is called your room allowance. So you take off the amounts of some people who live with them and call them non-dependents. So this is actually if you live, if you're renting, if you pay rent to council or housing association, you're in government property. This is information on based on tax with regard to public housing. So if you work out your housing element, you need to check how many rooms the government think you need. If you have too many rooms, you are going to pay tax. This is called your room allowance. The room allowance means the amount of room the government allow you to occupy. So there's other occupancy. Other occupancy will trigger a situation of bedroom tax. So you take off the amount for some people who live with you, who are actually people who are adults. They're called non-dependent adult, which are actually you're getting benefit as well. Your benefit is reduced for having extra room, but also reduced if an adult is living with you who should contribute towards the rent. It's considered to be, it's called non-dependent deduction. And so you get reduced, your benefit is reduced twice under this circumstance. So you can easily find out the condition of your room allowance on gov.uk. You cannot use the calculator if you or someone you live with has a disability or is a foster carer. So also if you live with 5 or more people, so if you live in a property that's the same size or smaller than the number of bedrooms, you are eligible for. These are eligible rent. The property for eligible rent, so to speak. Your housing element will cover all your rent under these circumstances. If you have more bedrooms than the government thinks you need, your housing element will be reduced. This is known as the bedroom tax, as I said before. So if you have one more bedroom than the government thinks you need, your housing element will be reduced by 14%. So 2 or more bedrooms than the government thinks you need, your housing element amount will be reduced by 25%. Your housing element might also be reduced by £85 and 73 pence each month for every non-dependent who lives with you. A non-dependent is someone who is expected to pay their own share of rent. Non-dependents are often parents, grown children, friends, and relatives, but not you are not, but excluding you, who you are. You are the client. So you can check who counts as non-dependent. If you pay rent to a private landlord, also there is a situation there. We will continue talking about that next time we meet. And thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you are watching this far. Share with family and friends. And click notification bell. Click like. And thank you. See you in the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.